Hello everyone and welcome to episode 84 of Competitive Magic with the Carnies. I'm your host from Italy, Andrea Mengucci, and joining me we have Javier Dominguez from Spain.
Hello everyone.
And Anthony Lee from Australia.
Hola.
The Carnies are back together, and today we are talking about Bloomburrow. There's actually a new set coming up this weekend with the pre-release, and it's gonna bring a rotation to standard. So we are kind of excited to kind of show you the cards that we think are the most interesting of the new set, as long as talking about some other topic. And the biggest announcement of the week that happened yesterday on Monday was that on stream on twitch.tv/magic was said that it was confirmed there is not going to be an emergency BNR update. And so the official day of any ban list that can possibly up into Magic will be on August 26th. Javier, Anthony, what do you guys think about this? What do you think Wizards should have done? Or do you agree with Wizards' decision to stand by the, dates that they said they would?
Well, this is a rather tricky topic to talk about. So first of all, I understand both sides of things. Like, I understand the value of sticking to a date, so people know what they can play and what they cannot play. I think that's something, like, that's a fair point. But I also think that that's only the case. Like, that only works if that was implied before. Like, going forward, this might work, but this time my feeling is like, sure, you do this so players feel safe about what they can play and they cannot, but this time it's like, well, but they already have been feeling not safe for 3 weeks, which is half of the time now there's going to be legal, right? So it's like, I think they're doing these for reasonable reasons, if that's correct to say, but I don't think this applies here because that's not what they have been doing before. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think it's fine if they announce it this way and then go do it going forward. But to this point, like, why would you apply the rules you're going to set up in the future if you're following the rules you have now, right? So I think it would be better if they just ban Nadu just a week after the PT, and then people can start having their seasons or whatever. Also, like, it's not very good to have the banning 3 weeks after the season starts, right? Why is the date 26 August and not, like, I think 3 August is when the season starts of RCQ, correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, shouldn't it be like then, or maybe this week or whatever, not like 3 weeks after the season, so people cannot even, like, franchise into a deck or whatever. I just see so many bad things, and I think this point of, like, let's put a date so everyone knows what's legal until then is good, but I don't think it applies here. So I think they presented a good situation, like a good, like, way of seeing it going forward, but I think they did it quite wrong this time.
But, I mean, they had said previously that that's when the date would be. So I don't think it's a rule that they're setting now. They'd said previously when the next ban list update would be, and they're sticking to that, right? I think that's very, very important. And a big part of that is that I don't really want it to go back to the state where bans could happen at any time, and it felt like ban discourse was just absolutely constant and drowned out everything, especially because it's so easy to get engagement by talking incessantly about bans, and it really dominated a lot of Magic discussion all the time, because there's always someone that wants something banned. And I think sticking to specific dates keeps that discussion around those specific dates, which I think is good. I think that's very valuable. And just in general, just the idea that they're going to stick to exactly their word is really important, because, I mean, they only just switched to this system where they said they would stick to specific windows to ban things. And I think if they deviate from that system so quickly after adopting it, I think that really defeats the purpose of having that system. They need to build trust in this system, and I think sticking very hard to this date is a big part of that. I definitely agree that the date they chose, being 3 weeks into the RCQ season, is an error. But they have said that they're going to try not to do that in future. So I think they just messed up on picking the date for this one. But sticking to the date nonetheless is probably the lesser of evils. I think, especially long term. And it is something that stores can work around as well. Like 3 weeks out of the 3 months of the season is something people can move their RCQs potentially or make them limited ones. I know that's not always ideal, but it is a way they can try to get around that issue if it is an issue. Yeah, I mean, I think it's not great short term, but I think it's better long term that they do uh not do anything before this date. I think emergency bans should in fact be for emergencies, and I don't really think this is one. I don't think 3 weeks of the season counts as an emergency.
Yeah, so I also agree with you, Javier, that I would prefer if there was a ban immediately. But I think also that it's not the end of the world that there's the best deck in Modern right now going on. And it's funnily enough, it's only for paper Modern because a Magical Line Nado is not nearly as good as it is in paper. So it is funny the difference between the Magical Line results and the paper results. But overall, yeah, I think I have an RCQ the 18th of August, so I'll be happily play Nadu again.
Just
But I mean,
just play
yeah,
Yeah.
Jeskai.
paper is a different thing. Oh, oops. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I think his points are actually quite fair. I think that I just feel like they always had dates, but dates were never that respected as opposed to emergency bannings, right? So I think if we now enter a world where they actually strongly respect the dates, I think that's a good thing. So I think Anthony has a point there.
But it's also Wizard, which is famous to just contradict itself at some
Well, yeah,
point
maybe
throughout
now they
the.
won't be.
Now there won't be. Yeah, that's always.
They done this pretty bad in the past, but that doesn't mean they cannot try to do it right now, right? So
Yeah, give them a shot.
Exactly. All right, so that's it for I guess, our reaction to the announcement of this week. So let's get into Bloomburrow, shall we? We highlighted a bunch of cards. We're gonna start with some cards that we think are playable in the older formats. Although let's just say it straight. There's just not that much. There's almost nothing for modern, right?
well, at this point, I mean, why would it be like? Look, if you look at most of the modern Horizons decks, I mean, sorry, modern decks, they're actually literally modern Horizons constructed. Like they are all fetchlands, shocklands, and then modern Horizons cards, and maybe sometimes there's like Thoughtseize and Spell Snare and Teferi or whatever. There's like one card per deck or whatever. Like at this point, normal sets do not get into modern. I think it's fine, so they don't have to design cards for those. So, but I pretty much don't expect cards from normal sets to break into modern to be playable. I mean, it can be a tier 3 deck or whatever, but like I don't expect these cards to be playable there, and I think that's okay. I think the cards from this set have to compete to be in Pioneer or Standard, and I think Modern Plus is just like it's just not going to happen. Like, at this point, the gap it seems like the more Modern Essence cards we have, the bigger the gap is, which is something I did not predict, but it makes sense, right? Because it's not like you have one strong card as Ragavan and then you have to support it and then it's good enough. It's just like since all the cards are good enough that Ragavan is not even good because it's not good on raid, then all the cards have to compete on actual raid, raw power level or whatever. And well, there's no way a standard card can compete to Orchestra Masters and the One Ring and all these cards in for raw power level. So I think it's gonna be. I mean, and if they keep doing this, once it goes like Modern Horizons 5 or whatever, well, it will be possible for new cards to break in, and it will be even more Modern Horizons constructed, which I already think it is. Like our PT deck was literally all Modern Horizons cards, one Spell Snare, two Teferi. So
yeah, I think Pioneer is kind of where it's kind of the non-rotating format where standard set cards can break into, and they often do. So yeah, I think that's kind of. I mean, I think these formats have now very distinct roles, and that's kind of where I would look for, non-standard cards to see play, the ones from standard sets. So I mean, a bunch of these
Yeah, I
are like
agree.
plausibly good in Pioneer. You know, there's a lot more room there. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Not too
I'm
worried
not saying
about it,
it's
I
bad.
think.
I'm not saying it's bad or it's good. I'm saying it is what
Yeah.
like it's that's the reality we live in. Like the cars do not get into modern because modern is modern license now. So we just Pioneer is the format. Yeah, I agree. Very well said.
Yeah. Even before then, like even before Modern Horizons, I wouldn't have thought that. I wouldn't expect many cards to see play more. Just you know,
No,
by
but you had some like there was like cars like Legend Shredder, for example. Which is a
sure.
very it's a pushed car, so it got there somehow. There were some cars like Omnath. There were cars that were randomly super pushed in a way with legends or whatever, and they eventually end, ended being good. But I think that's gonna be more and more rare going forward because there's just no space.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think that's probably inherently true. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So we have what
All right,
two cards?
let's talk about this card, which is I think just naturally stronger in older format because I mean we're gonna read it. Ask Burster Swarm. It's a 7 and a black, so 8 mana total. Menace Death Touch 6/6, but it costs 1 less to cast for each creature you own in your graveyard or in your exile. So in a self-milled deck, something like the Mono Black with Stitcher Supplier, Catonian Nightmare, that actually just self-mills a lot, you can cast. It's a 6/6 that gets through the various graveyard hate because it counts exile as well. And when I was playing that deck, I didn't do very well, mostly because my graveyard kept on being exiled. So maybe this is something that can play around that post sideboard. Just again, a large creature that was maybe worth highlighting in this.
I mean, you get to cast it, but then you just get. I think it's very hard for just raw stats to be good in modern. It seems like a really long. Like I don't
Like,
like
will a
you
two
got to
mana
be.
card like this be good, Anthony? You think a 2 mana 6 Death Touch will be good in modern?
No, I'm not sure. Maybe like if it was actually 2 mana, maybe there would be something different you could do with it. But if I have to do any work for it, or if I can't cast it on turn 2, then I think
Yeah,
it
that's
probably
it.
wouldn't be. Yeah, like if it had like
All
Sarah
right.
Avenged Text, a 2 mana, or even a 1 mana 6/6 would not be any good
Like
in
this will
modern.
be played by some people, but the reason why you were doing bad with that deck, it's just not because they were Xanyu River, but because the deck was probably not very good. That will be my analysis of the situation, Mango.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
like
know. I'm not here trying to convince you that this card is good. I just I
yeah,
found a
but we're
few
talking
cards
about
and
like
I
just in
wanted to.
general, like the payoffs for things in modern have to be uh a lot more powerful than I think like raw stats just doesn't really cut it in modern at any point, and it hasn't for quite a long time probably. Um, yeah, like for example, the Crabvine, like what Javi was talking about, like when we talked before about the Crabvine deck, like the problem with that deck wasn't just that it was weak to hate, but that you would do your thing, just put like a bunch of power and toughness into play, and then your opponent would do something extremely broken, like Primeval Titan
Nadu.
stuff or Nadu stuff or Storm stuff, and you would die horribly. So like, I think you can't ever just put stats into play in modern, like barring something like Urza's Saga or something. You know, like this could be a 10/10, and I think it would be very good. So I think the bar is really, really tough. You got to do something combo-ish, I think.
All right, let's get into the another card that may see play modern, and that is Into the Flood Maw. This is an instant that bounces a creature, but if you give your opponent a 1/1 token, you can bounce any permanent. Now, this is basically a Chain of Vapor, and there are some decks in modern that have played Void Snare, in the Cyber, for example, and this is like an instant speed Void Snare. Now, again, we're not talking about good cards or anything, but something that you may be interested in knowing that exists in Pioneer and Modern to bounce your opponent card for just 1 mana.
Yeah, I mean, I think I cannot remember ever playing with Botsoner, but I think this card is definitely a Pioneer card. Like you could play
Yeah.
this over the Perilous
Well,
Voyage and Lotus
yeah.
Cyborg, this kind of card. I think that's probably the only use I can see for it. That's already good enough, right?
Yeah.
But I will be surprised if this ends being somewhat playable in modern anyway. But yeah, it's good to have this effect, as Mango says. Like it's good to have access to those, but certainly not a very playable card, and certainly not Chain of Vapor. So Chain of Vapor is split combo kill you card with Storm card, so it's a whole different level.
Yeah, I think it's like there's
Okay.
nothing too distinct about it. Like it's just the most efficient of this effect, and when you want that effect, you play this one. Like it's pretty self-explanatory, I think.
All right, let's get into Standard now. So we have said last time we talked about Standard that with Bloomburrow, it's going to be a rotation time. So a lot of sets will rotate out. And we we had some we had some problem last time mentioning what's not in standard, so I guess we can Google what's in standard.com to know exactly what's in standard this time
Well,
around.
I'm gonna use this. It's gonna be so useful for me when I have to sort my cards and take out the standard cards that rotate. It's gonna be great. Also,
You
some
have to
house,
remember
you'll
4
still.
sets.
I have to remember the 4
Okay.
sets. I also don't know because these sets I didn't draft. I barely don't know them. I only know March of the Machines and Pure Excel V1. The sets I don't draft.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, so if you Google what's in standard.com,
This is useful.
you will read that what's in standard question mark for Magic the Gathering. Well, you have 4 sets that are legal until Friday, August 2024, which is going to be next week. You have actually, isn't that wrong? Isn't it this weekend?
I have no idea. Actually.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
think
it's
they're
wrong.
actually
But
legal this
anyway,
weekend,
yeah, so on Friday, these 4 sets will not be in standard anymore, and they are Innistrad Midnight Hunt, Innistrad Crimson Vow, Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, and Streets of New Capenna. Okay, everything else remains legal in standard until at least 2025, and that is, the next block of sets. So what are we missing forever? So that's the Capenna lands, so that's the Triumph.
Boseiju, finally.
All the channel lands in Kamigawa. All of the slow lands in Innistrad. What are the spells that we are
a lot
gonna
of important ones. So,
forget
for example,
forever?
a lot of the legends that are significant. So, Rafine rotates. A bunch of the supporting cards like Denick rotate. Slogurk rotates. The Teemo Analyst deck will no longer exist because the Capenna fetch lands rotate as well as the Triumphs. What else? Control decks will look very different because the Wandering Emperor and Memory Deluge also rotate. Like, I think Streets of New Capenna and Kamigawa especially were like very powerful sets. So there are quite a few things that do rotate that are very impactful. I think a lot of the current standard decks a lot of the top standard decks won't exist. I'd guess. I think what does a domain deck use? Maybe.
Well, I don't know. The main deck does.
The Triumphs are a
Triumphs.
big part of the
Yeah.
domain.
I mean,
deck.
Triumphs
okay.
were great to have around. I actually like the Triumphs design a lot this time. Like, I think they were, interesting from a development, point of view. They were good job.
Yeah. So let's start. So Javier said his hot take about the best card of Bloomburrow in standard is going to be Glarb Kalamit's Augur. What is it? It's a Sultai, 3 mana, 2/4, and by Sultai I mean it costs black, green, and blue, 2/4 Death Touch. You may look at the top of a card library at any time. You may play lands, and you can cast spells with mana value 4 or greater from the top of your library, and you can tap it to Surveil 2. Now, Javier, you said that. Do you care to explain why you think this card is going to be the best card in standard of Bloomburrow?
Well, if it's castable on the mana basis, which is unsure, but I think this card is extremely powerful because, I mean, the floor is a 2/4 that has Death Touch, which is obviously not going to be super easy to kill or whatever in combat. But, like, the combination, it's Cost of Screwfix, but better because mana value 4 or more means that if you're flooded or whatever, either you get a land or you get a big spell. So you only cannot cast removals and such. But also, like, if you ever had Course of Screwfix or Oracle of Muldaya in Cube with stuff like Preordain or whatever, you know how broken it is with, manipulating the top card of the library. And this guy does it himself. Like, you have a removal spell, so you Surveil 2. And then it's like, well, I'm just going to be like, I'm going to put the land on top and then the removal, and then I'm going to play the land for free and then removal, right? And you can also play the land and then play the 4 mana spell, which is like, if this is a 2/4 that gives you 1 or 2 cards per turn and has Death Touch, I mean, what do you want from me? like I think this card is going to be a very dominating card. Like, I don't think you can ever grind this card ever. Like, if it stays 1 turn in the battlefield, it's going to be 1+1 card, maybe +2, because, I also assume this works very well in the standard because the 4 mana plus cards actually are playable often. Like, you can play this into Shieldred, and then what? If you play a 4 mana threat out of this, this presents a situation where your opponent is going to trouble to come back, because now what do they kill? Do they kill the Shieldred, or do they kill this guy so it doesn't get more Shieldreds? And yeah, I think this will be great. Also because it's a 3-mana card that has 4 toughness and that's it. So even if you're playing defense or whatever against aggro decks, the ratio. I mean, this is the same sort of cryptic situation where a 2/4, in this case, Death Touch actually blocks very well. So I will expect this to be very good, especially with passage on the passage. Also good with Corsair and good with this because you can shuffle the top card again. So there's a lot of small interactions I can see going there. So yeah,
that's true. Fable Passage.
Yeah.
Fable Passage got reprinted.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's gonna be the most important card in Standard, probably, right? But that's not the reprint I meant. So I can see this card being just a dominating force as long as the mana base supports it. But if you're playing Golgari, you probably want to splash these, maybe, or maybe not. I don't know. But I think it's worth trying as long as the mana base work, which is not easy to see on the surface. That's a job for Anthony.
Yeah,
but if this is guessable,
definitely when you try to build decks in this new Standard format, the mana bases are actually bad, just straight up, mana is horrible. So that is so this card will definitely be a lot harder to cast than it looks, I think, but the power level is definitely there for all the reasons that Javier said. Wow.
Maybe it's not good right away. Maybe it's good later when they breed the Wetlands or whatever, but I think this card is certainly... if I add this card in my cube deck, I will be very happy about it. So that's how I think it's good.
Huh. I mean, I don't know anything about cubes. That sounds like a big endorsement.
That's definitely a good card, but there's more. There's more good cards. So let's keep on reading them. We got Keen-Eyed Curator. This is a double green 3/3, so it costs 2 mana for a 3/3, and has the important text of tap 1, exile target card from the graveyard. That reminds me of of course, Scavenging Ooze. That's what I'm thinking of. And it says, as long as there are 4 or more cards type among cards exiled with Keen-Eyed Curator, it gets +4/+4 and trample. Okay, so it's basically Delirium for cards exiled, something like that. And you get a 7/7 trample if that happens.
Well, is this card better or worse than Scavenging Ooze? Is it clearly better or clearly worse? I don't know.
Well, double green is definitely much harder to cast than 1 and a green, especially if we just read a Sultai card. So that is something to think of.
Yeah, but Ooze is you need green to activate, so it's not even that obvious that this needs way more than Ooze to be used, and also 2 mana 3/3. This attacks very well.
And also late game, it's not that hard to be a 7/7 trample.
Trample also. I mean, this card could be very well.
You have Fable Passage.
No? Yeah, maybe this is better than Ooze.
You have Fable Passage now in everyone's graveyard, so the land is covered. And then you have instant sorcery creature. That's not usually that hard to put in your standard decks.
Yeah, I think this card might be. I don't know. It has a very good rate. I think it is. The biggest difference between it and Ooze is that it starts out much more strongly. I think this card might also be good in Pioneer, where the green cost is actually an upside compared to 1 and a green, and exiling cards from graveyards is especially valuable there, right? Because of both Phoenix and Amalia. So I don't know. I think this card might be playable in Pioneer. Maybe it's good in Standard.
This could go mono green, right? This could be playing mono green.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, there's a mono green deck that's doing well.
What about Glue Vehicles? Does that deck still around in Pioneer?
Not really, no.
Well, it does not, but maybe this is start. The card is definitely filled. Anthony's right. This is actually better probably Pioneer than a Standard. This can murder Phoenix, right?
Yeah, it'd be pretty annoying. Also, if it ever becomes a 7/7, it's
GG, unkillable.
Very hard
to
buy,
Yeah, it's also it dodges the 2 damage removal spell in the early game maybe, and you can exile to remove spell mastery.
Yeah, it's very not easy to kill it with a simple. So yeah, I mean, wow, this card looks. The more I look at it, the better it looks.
All right, let's go ahead. We have another very good one, Hard Claw. This costs 1 red for a 1/2, and it's a lizard mercenary. And it says whenever you attack with 1 or more lizards, Hard Claw deals 1 damage to target opponent. So this is a 1 mana card that attacks for 2, basically. But not just that. It has another ability. You pay 1 and a red, and you put a +1/+1 counter on it, but you only do that once per turn, and if the opponent has lost life this turn. So you can attack, ping them, and threaten to attack with a 2/3. So your opponent, if they have a 2/2, for example, they can't block you, because you can just pump and get a 2/3. And yeah, it's just cost just 1 mana and can attack for 3 basically on turn 2. This is a good card, very good card.
Yeah, I think it's like very rare for there to be particularly good one drops in standard. And this definitely seems like it qualifies. I mean, I think if there's a good aggressive deck, like this could definitely be part of it. And I guess I'd also note that if there is a good lizards deck, this would obviously be a big part of that. But you don't necessarily have to play any lizards with this. Like it's kind of good by itself, right? Like it still attacks with 2 and threatens to pump each turn. If you have multiples, they kind of have haste-ish. Like if you play another one, even if it's summoning sick, they'll still trigger off the first one that you attack with. Like I think this is just a good one drop. So don't be misled into thinking that this only goes in like lizard themed decks. You could just play this in any red aggressive deck. Although of course, this is a reason that you might want to play lizards to make this card more powerful. But yeah, I think it's a pretty pushed one drop.
Yeah, definitely push. Like if you play more lizards, what happens is like you play this and attack with the bigger lizards, so they have to either take damage or spell a removal spell on these small lizards. So I also think it might be better than it reads in a lizard deck. But this card is pushed there.
And also it's a mercenary, so it's an outlaw. Now I don't know how many combos were there with outlaws, but there was just a set around it in OTGA. Maybe something relevant. Now it just caught my attention.
I will
maybe
note
not it.
that nearly all the lizards that you would play are in fact, maybe all of them even, they are almost all outlaws. And there are in fact some lizards that were in standard before this set as well, so you want to check those out. For example, Laughing Jasper Flint is a lizard and an outlaw from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Magebane Lizard, a card that has seen a little play already, is well, that one's a lizard. And the fun one is that Pyrotechnic Performer has errata to make it a wizard, make it a lizard. So yeah, there's a bunch of secret wizards. Pyrotechnic, yeah, this guy's actually a lizard now. So
oh yeah, it's a lizard assassin. Wait, it's a new card and they already errated it.
well, they errated all the Viashinos to be lizards at some point.
Oh,
So,
all the Viashinos are now lizard.
And also
I
all the
see.
cephalids are now octopus.
Yeah. So it was just part
I'm
of
sad
that.
about that. Yeah.
Well, no one
That's
likes
true.
cephalids anyway, so it's fine.
Okay. All right, let's continue. We got a bunch of aggressive cards that are very good here. We got Sunspine Lynx, 2 and 2 red, so 4 total for a 5/4 that says players can't gain life and damage can't be prevented. When it comes into play, it deals damage to each player equal to the number of non-basic lands that player controls. Now, that's a line of text that a lot of players wanted to have in Modern, and well, it's not a Modern power level card here, 4 mana 5/4, but this card does a lot of things, and it's quite good. I mean, in Pioneer, there's no way to punish the non-basic lands, and now basic. Maybe this one is.
Yeah, also prevents the Amalia combo, right? So why not?
Yeah, you stop the Amalia combo with this, and I don't know. I think that effect should do like quite a lot of damage. So it seems like just a powerful card to me. I don't know how good it will be in standard because I think a lot of decks are going to skew towards playing a lot of basics just because you don't have many options in general. But I would still expect it to do a fair amount of damage, and games just go super long. So this scaling into the late game might be particularly valuable there. I don't know. Maybe it's not really a modern power level card, but I guess the second line does stop the One Rings trigger. I guess so. Maybe that's something, and maybe you play this, it deals them like 5 or something, and turns off their One Ring. Like I don't know.
Yeah, people have played Questing Druid before.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Like, how good do you think this guy will be in the last standard? Because I think maybe this could have single-handedly pushed Mara to a tier 1 or whatever, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Like if you're playing only Mountains, you play this against a deck like Esper. It's like 4 mana, you take 1 for each land you have. That's not bad.
And the first ability turns off Sheoldred's life gain, which was like
exactly. Yeah, like they play Sheoldred, you play this, and well, they travel. I don't know. This is a very good. I think it's been a while since we have seen a 4 mana top end that is good for Mono Red, honestly.
Yeah, I think this card might be. It would have been excellent in the last standard format. I don't know, man. The can't gain life thing would have been sick against Analyst as well. Wow, this guy really did. could have used this guy a few months ago. But yeah,
Yeah,
I think it was fine.
basically like
against the other decks. That's not our list. Like, I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
usually the 4 drop, like once upon a time 4 drops were good in red, and they became bad forever. And this one's the first one I think is actually good, because last year we had like Thunder and Raiju or whatever. Like, they were not good drops, right? This one is
Yeah.
good. Like, I just that Mana Red will be good with this. So maybe this is good enough.
I think so. Yeah.
I'm going to lose to that card, and you also are going to lose to that card. I'm telling you that.
Almost certainly.
all right, let's continue. We got another very cool one, Darkstar Augur, 2 and a black for a 2/3, so it's a 3 mana 2/3, and it has the ability to offspring. Now this is basically kicker. You pay 1 black and you get a bonus. And the bonus in this case is that when you cast the spell, you can play the extra mana and you get a 1/1 token that is a copy of this card. So this is a 2/3 for 3 mana, but if you pay 4, you get a 2/3 and a 1/1, and both of these cards will have flying and will at the beginning of your upkeep, you do the Dark Confident play of revealing a card, add it to your hand, and lose life equal to its mana value. So normally, yeah, this Dark Confident, Caustic Bronco, you now have 2 Caustic Bronco in a deck, and this card doesn't seem bad.
Yeah, I could see this being part of an aggressive deck, maybe. Like, I don't know, it's pretty unique. I just don't really know what to think about most of these offspring cards, but this one seems like, I don't know, it's not clear whether you're meant to use. I think you probably only put it in your deck if you are using the offspring ability. But I mean, I could see that being risky in some of the games where you've played it. But I don't know, it seems like it has a lot of potential, because I mean, it's not just that you get the 2 things every turn. It's that you also make 2 bodies, and there's a bunch of effects that care about that. For example.
Oh, this is very good against spot removal. Precisely, like, because you play two card advantage engine, but you have to be playing a matchup where your life total doesn't matter.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is actually not that common in the standard, right? So this looks to me like more like a sideboard-ish cards, like Phyrexian Arena type of card, than playing against a deck that has answers to those effects. And overall seems worse than Bronco. I will say this is worse than Bronco because the lack of flexibility. Like, Confident will be not that good in a standard because you are not really flexible on what to do with the Confident, because you can die to it, or you have to play too much of a low mana curve, which is not a good spot to be in a standard usually. And this offers the same problems while being a bit slow. Like, you're playing this on the draw against a matchup where you're not playing against control. It's not going to be good enough, I think. So I could be wrong, but I think this is still be worse than Bronco, even though they can play very well together. Maybe you can play a bunch of Duresses and then, Broncos on this. But you probably need to make sure you don't lose too much life. I guess Shieldred is good.
Kinda. I don't know. It's hard to say. Yeah, it's definitely true that flexibility is super important in standard generally. This card, despite being modal, isn't really, because the optionality is to double down, which is not the kind of flexibility you need in standard. So maybe that's a big problem for this card. I do think Bronco is quite a bit better, to be fair. I don't know whether you can build around both. That's actually unclear to me. Like, maybe they're better because if you can play all of them, because then it's actually worth warping your deck around them. Maybe it's worse because you actually just can't afford to put. So like, this kind of effect is hard to it doesn't stack very well, right? Like, you only have so much life to pay. So I'm not really sure.
Well, burn spells will be good with this, I guess.
Hmm.
A bunch of burn spells, maybe. Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Out of 1-drops, but it's hard to tell which 1-drops are actually worth a card in the standard. So, yeah.
All right, we got more cards here. There's this very cute mythic rare otter. It's called Kitsa Otter Ball Elite. It costs 1 in a blue for a 1/3. Vigilance, Prowess. Tap, draw card, discard a card, and you tap 2. You tap this and you copy target instant or sorcery spell. You can choose new targets, but you can only do that if Kitsa power is 3 or greater. Now, you got a lot of words on a 2-drop, and yeah, this card seems quite strong for just 2 mana. So blue-red has also another card with prowess, so maybe there's a blue-red prowess type of deck.
Well, this card is pushed. Like, think of this. Like, this could be. I could see a world where this is playable on Phoenix just on rate. Like, it's a 2 mana 1/3 Prowess Vigilance. We know what Prowess Vigilance do, or I don't know if we do. But prowess creatures are very easy to attack with, and vigilance plus prowess is like gonna dominate the battlefield so much. It's a looter, which is not bad. And if you play 2 spells only, you already can copy whatever you play in the second. Like if you go opt into Treasure Cruise, you can copy it, and that's a total of 4 mana to go through 6. So this basically brings you an alternative win condition that like acts as a galvanic iteration as well. I will say this card is definitely seeking with Treasure Cruise, and well, maybe even good enough also for standard. Like you don't need to work that much for this to be good. You play 1 spell, and then the second spells you can copy every turn, and that's already a solid creature in the battlefield. I don't know what Anthony thinks about this, but I think this card is definitely very strong.
Yeah, I think this is one of the cards that looks most impressive to me for that reason. Like, it just doesn't seem that hard to enable. Like, it just helps you function at a baseline level. Like, it's defensively quite relevant. Like, if you just attack, you can't really block, and you just pass with a bunch of mana up, it's kind of hard to attack into it as well. Or, like, it can be 2, 4, 3, 5 on defense, which, blocks a lot early game. And then, like, in the game goes long, like, it becomes very easy to generate advantage of this. Like, it just seems so, like, even setting aside, like, the Treasure Cruise Dream, like, I'd be pretty happy casting like opt, consider, copy the consider with this or something, right? Like, seems probably it doesn't seem that difficult to enable. And maybe there are some ways that you can make it bigger so you can start copying things even earlier. I'm not sure what effects might do that, but maybe there's some sort of, if you're playing like the prowess deck, if you ever put like a monstrous rage on it, it just starts copying the first spell you cast every turn, for example. I mean, this seems like it's good at most stages of the game, I think. So. Yeah, I think this might be one of the better cards in the set. Maybe Pioneer playable. I could see that. Spots are a bit tight, but could be good.
Cube playable as well.
Yeah,
I guess.
I think so. I mean, they're definitely cool playable. Like you can copy things like Tamwalk there. You can just play a Mox and they play Tamwalk and copy the Tamwalk. Like what? Definitely playable in Cube.
Yeah, and it's a Merfolk looter, which is always fine.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think this is the best looter on Cube. Probably. Like the card, I think the card's very good. Whenever you copy a spell and construct it, it tends to end the game very often, as long as it's not a cantrip. So,
yeah. Okay.
Gotta find a way to fit.
So, as I mentioned, there's another blue-red prowess card. It's a blue-red 1/1 haste prowess, and it says instant to sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less. Maybe not that powerful, but that clause, the Goblin Electromancer clause, can maybe breach into some different decks, and interesting card to note.
Oh, I just realized, by the way, I don't know. I was still thinking about Kids. It really only just hit me. I was trying to figure out how to put +1/+1 counters on Kids, and I remembered Proselytic Memory. Oh, so actually that's really easy to do, right? I just thought about that.
It's also standard legal, right? As well.
Yeah. So that's actually
ideal memory.
Yeah.
With Kitsa. That's cool.
And even enables it by like, oh yeah, okay, well.
That's good.
All right, anyway, you can go back to Slump Capper. That just suddenly hit me. I was like, why did I not think of that?
Yeah. No, it's true. Yeah, with let's just show the legendary enchantment that's played in Izzet Phoenix. Speaking of which, Anthony, you mentioned you wanted to say something about this card for Pioneer, and I guess this could be a good moment to talk about it.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I thought this card was a lot worse than it actually is. I mean,
because again, for the people that don't know, you wrote a guide about Pioneer Izzet Phoenix, and
I wouldn't say I wrote it. I worked on it a bit with Isaac Bullwinkle, and we have a Phoenix guide.
Okay.
But
sure, yeah.
We didn't play much of the memory when we were testing for the PT, because I mean, it just doesn't look like a card that fits in the deck very well. It's something that people asked us about afterward, and I think all of us were like not very high on this card. But and it still does have like a lot of like clear structural issues in the deck. But after playing with it more, like I played it in the challenge last weekend, and it was good. Like, it was definitely better than I thought it would be. Especially because it doesn't have more of those issues than, for example, Crackling Drake. So I think it mixes like kind of well with the other cards in your deck. Like, it's not as good as Galvanic Iteration with Temporal Trespass, but it still does something powerful there. And there are spots where it is better, like when you just don't have 5 mana, for example, and you get to set up a kill over a couple of turns with it. Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of surprised because it doesn't read very well. So yeah, I wanted to say that I would if I told somebody that this card was probably not playable, I would reverse that now. I think it's probably still a bit overrated, but it is pretty solid. Yeah, it's pretty good. Anyway,
All right, let's continue. We got
I should
more
go get
cards
pizza.
from Bloomburrow to
Wait,
note.
we're talking about the
Rotten
blue
Mouth.
red guy first, right? Sorry.
Oh, okay,
That we
yeah,
went on a
Storm
tangent.
Catch Mentor. Yeah,
um.
all right.
Yeah, I don't know. Have you have thoughts about this card?
Man, this card's good. I mean, there was this Storm Chaser Wizard or something that was a 1/3 haste, right? Prowess?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And that
flying.
was playable across the formats or whatever, right? This is probably in the same vein. Maybe a bit better because the Electromancer text is good, but obviously this needs to have good spells, and the issue is the spells are not that good in Pioneer unless they cost one I'm playing in Phoenix. So this doesn't have a deck. Could be good, but I don't think it's going to be very playable. But the
Yeah,
card's good. It just doesn't have a home.
Yeah, like a lot of people seemed excited about this card, but something I wanted to note is that this kind of card doesn't actually play well in air quotes a prowess deck, because usually you want to put lots of cards in your deck that cost 1 mana to cast, and this card doesn't get the benefit of its last ability with those cards. So it looks like it would contribute to a prowess deck, but I think it doesn't really fit there. So it is a weird card, like because I would like to play lots of like ops considers that type of cards, even like even the more expensive spells are cards like Slick Sequence that don't work with this card. It's yeah, I think it just doesn't. I think it sort of is oddly anti-synergistic. I think prowess and the Electromancer effect don't work very well in terms of deck building. So I think this card might be a trap. Yeah.
That's a fair point, actually. Yeah, so it will need to have a lot of 2 mana spells that cost 1/1, pretty much.
Yeah. Which doesn't really
Yeah,
fit with
so
prowess.
there's this card which is legal in Standard, Balmore Battle Mage Captain, which reminds me of that. It says whenever you cast it, 2 mana 1/3 flyer, whenever you cast instant sorcery, creatures control the +1/+0 and gain trample. So maybe if you have like a high volume of these cards, you can do something.
Yeah, but then you also need a bunch of spells and a lot
You also need a bunch of creatures.
Charter cores. Yeah, I don't know, maybe, but I don't think it's very likely. It could be enough to be a deck, but I don't think the deck will be good.
Yeah, I mean, Balmor specifically I need like multiple creatures and I need multiple 1 mana spells. Like that's, I mean, those are also a bit at odds with each other. Like, how am I building a deck that has a lot of ops and also 1-drops? Like, I don't think it fits very
That's the former Historic Wizards deck, though.
Yeah, but I mean, like, but you have to like have like very specific conditions. I think to
Flame of Honor, yeah, which is not legal in Standard.
I can't really see that happening in Standard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have the higher claw to start.
Nope.
All right, let's go. Rotten Mouth. Let's go to the next one. We have a 6-drop here. Rotten Mouth Viper. It's a mythic rare, but it's not just a 6-drop. It costs. Sorry, as an additional cost to cast the spell, you may sacrifice any number of null-land permanents, and you get a discount of 1 colorless for each permanent sacrificed this way. You get a 6/6 that says when it comes into play, you put a blight counter on it. Then for each blight counter on it, each opponent loses 4 life and sacrifices a null permanent or discards a card.
Yeah, this card's getting a lot of attention. I think
why does it get a blight counter? Yeah.
Well, so that's the first time it deals 1, and then the second time.
Enter the battlefield or attacks.
Yeah. So
okay, so
it attacks for 8, pretty much.
It's like Archon of Cruelty. You get ATB and attack.
Yeah, but every time you attack, it's bigger.
Yeah, the attack is bigger. So like it triggers, like you do that process once when it enters and then twice when it attacks.
Oh, that's cool. But I guess they can't just discard cards or sacrifice a null and permanent instead of losing the life.
Yeah.
I feel like this card might be missing a keyword. Honestly, like the classic Death Touch that Shield right and attracts a half that does not seem relevant, but eventually is. Like why this card looks like it should have Death Touch, right? Like it is a huge Titanic snake and has no Death Touch or no reach.
Death Touch on a 6/6 it isn't that important, right? Like,
well, but I'm saying it could have. I mean, it's good if you have to attack into Atraxas.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, because this could happen, right? Like the fact that this card does not attack into Atraxa, for example, can actually end mattering a lot. I think this is the issue with this kind of card is it's either extremely good or just not playable. Like I think it's very unlikely for this to be just the classic 6-drop. That's fine. Like 6 drops in standard tend to be either they're completely busted when they're in the battlefield or they just don't see much play. What do you think?
But I guess this is not really a 6-drop, right? Because you can sacrifice, like you build your deck in a way where you have fodder to sacrifice to this, and it costs like, let's say, 4 mana.
Well, but then it's not that good because you're playing a synergy deck that this is a 5-drop to sacrifice a creature, and then what? They pay for life and then kill it? Go for the throat?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, also, Javier, this I don't know, this analogy might make a lot more sense to Javier, but this has what's it called? It has a Furnace Hellkite problem. Is that the name of the card? The MH3, the dragon with affinity from Modern Horizons 3 Limited.
Whoa. Kind
so
of.
Like
the dragon was
like the problem is that like the black red deck was good because you played like insignificant card because you had like so many synergy pieces that were resistant to removal. But then you played this thing that's like a really good target for removal. They just have removal in their hand all the time because they couldn't use it for value on anything else. So this thing would always
that's
just
a good comparison. Exactly.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I think this card has to be good as a 4-drop, 5-drop. Like the way I see it, it's a 5-drop that you can sacrifice a foot or whatever,
Yeah.
Right, because you can sacrifice foots, can you? You can, right?
Yeah.
With the snake. Like if you play this for 5 mana, how it is that? Because maybe it's not good enough. Like
yeah, I think this is like you can't really like push the synergy. Like I don't want to like play a ton of like sacrifice fodder and then play this card for like a mana or something because I think then it's easier to like cast it, but then the payoff is much worse for that Furnace Hellkite problem. But yeah, if it's like a card where you're sacrificing, like I don't know, like Bloodtithe Harvester rotates, but if it's the sort of thing where like you have a bunch of cards that make incidental stuff like that, then maybe you have something like maybe you have a food from Restless Cottage or something, which is kind of the intent. But the problem that I have then is that this card doesn't seem like it's going to be better than other. Like it has a very similar sort of payoff to cards like Sheoldred or Archfiend or the Dross, where I mean, sure, this gets like a little more value because it has the ETB trigger, but they're quite likely to just be able to pay for life. And then if they kill it, like it's still just like the class of card that you get is big creature. If they don't kill it, they'll probably die by taking a lot of damage, right? But you have to work, I think, considerably harder to make this card competitive on that angle compared to Archfiend of the Dross and Sheoldred. I think Archfiend, it's maybe a little closer to Archfiend in that regard. Yeah, I'm not too excited about this card, but I could see it being good. I do think it is important to note what Javier said, though. It's not like it's not a card that you're trying to like really max out that first ability. I don't know what.
Yeah, I mean, this could be good in Golgari midrange because you can also do things like sacrifice the Moosewood Red Knight,
that's kind of nice
to cast it again, and it's a deck where you actually grind, but also like this has to be good in specifically midrange because you need to care 1 about piece of cardboard, 2 about life totals, and 3 play a deck where none of the resources your opponent have are non-relevant because if you're playing a control deck, they can they can discard removals, right? So it doesn't work. Like you have to be playing on all the angles. I think this is a pure midrange card. So this should compare to Sheoldred and Archfiend specifically. I actually could see this being better than Archfiend. Sheoldred is just like a different card because it's also defensive. But I think this could be maybe a good better than the other cards at the top. And I'm just thinking about it. Like if you play this for 5 mana, sacrificing random thing what you have there will be some matchups, like you play this against a red deck or whatever, where will turn the corner very fast, like very, very fast, because it's 4 life when it comes into play, and then attacks for 8+6, right? That's actually like pretty much lethal by itself in one attack, isn't it? If you don't discard cards or sacrifice things.
Yeah.
I mean. That's not
that's
bad at all.
thing.
Like the rate is good. Yeah, but the rate is good. I'm saying like this will close the game fast, right? It's one attack at most close the game, and the second attack will pretty much kill anyone's board. So could be something. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I figure Archfiend's usually better at doing that, but maybe this is better in some matchups. So I think against aggressive decks, Archfiend is better, both because it comes in early and because them having creatures makes it turn the game around like extremely quickly. Like Archfiend is like somewhat like if you pair it with something like Gix's Command, they actually do just die on turn 5 to Archfiend, whereas this card will never do something like that. But maybe against other decks, like if they're rampy type decks, like if there is some successor to Domain or some other ramp deck like the red-green ramp deck, maybe this card is particularly good against those, because for those decks, exchanging resources is very expensive. So yeah,
this could also be playable if Rakdos midrange could come back. This could be like a one-off in Rakdos type midrange in Pioneer as well, because this lets you that have a good use of the blood tokens, but also like it's
Oh.
probably going to be sick with Fable of the Mirrorbreaker as well. So
That
like
is
maybe
pretty
there's
good with
some
Fables.
yeah, I mean, maybe I'm saying
Okay.
like it's hard to tell how good this card is, but it's definitely it's unique, but it's push. I mean, the rates are good. Like if you play this on 5 and you have like this 1 turn clock to kill the opponent, I think this card is. I at least like the design so far. Let's just hope it's not too good, but I think it's interesting. The fact that we can now really tell right away if we think it's good or not is probably a good sign.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, I'm a little higher on this card now. A little bit after talking about it.
All right, let's continue. We got a large dude here, green, XX. Sorry, green, red, and X for a 5/5 trample. It's called Hugs, and it's hugging.
All right, I have a
What's it?
question. Yeah, I mean, I have questions about this card. Is this card a Miss
What's
Kenbu parody? Like,
what's he hugging? What's he
I don't
hugging? A
know, something
skeleton?
small. But
I have
like,
a feeling that whatever it's hugging is dying. It doesn't look very
yeah, but
isn't
like,
that a
I mean,
it's a skeleton?
it's a big guy with an armor holding something in the arms, the same way Bui's Misk does, and also it has the part of the eye painted like a tattoo in
Oh.
the around the eye, the same way Misk has, right? Like this has to
Does he?
this. Yeah, he does. Look at the eyes. It's
Oh.
like a black. Yeah. So
Oh.
it's like, I mean, if someone listening is an expert on these matters, I will like. I feel like I get the vibe of this is a Miss Kenbu parody or whatever, or throwback or whatever it's called. I just would like to know if that's actually true, because if it is, I actually like it. If not, maybe I'm seeing things that are not there. But yeah, that when I saw this card, it was like, wow, this is like he looks like Miss Kenbu. Yeah.
All right. let's read what it does. So it's a 4-mana 5/5 trample that you can pay extra mana. You can pay X, and for as much mana you pay, you can exile the top X cards of your libraries, and until your next turn, you can play those cards, and you may play an additional land on each of your turns. So it's a mix of just like large dude and Escape to the Wilds. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's the same, just the ability is the same. So yeah, you have a lot of mana, you get all cards, and you don't have a lot of mana, you have a 4-mana 5/5 trample. That's pretty good. That's a lot of stats on a card in colors that can ramp. So yeah, I like it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Gone. I don't know. Like, it's kind of interesting that the payoffs are like mid game thing and like very large payoff. Like if we're having like a ton of mana, which is a little strange. Like I don't think we've had many cards like that before, but I guess it's like it's interesting because like if you play like for example a lot of 2-mana dorks, like you can play it as like an aggressive-ish play on turn 3. Just play like a 5/5 that might ram you a little. Or if you end up with like a lot of mana, you can play it for like 7 or something, and then 5/5 draw 3 cards is reasonably impressive rate. Yeah, I think it's strong, but I'm not really sure how you fit it into decks. Like it doesn't. I'm not sure if it fits very well into like the existing red green ramp decks, for example, because it doesn't necessarily play very well with Smuggler's Surprise. But I don't know, it might be good.
Yeah, I think one aspect that can be overlooked about this card is that if you play it to turn 3, not only you get the turn 3 Peter or whatever, but also you get to develop the mana. So you can go turn 3 Hugs, and then set up a turn 4 6-drop by itself. So even the split card that's only in the early game, you get this like Arvolo Gracer effect. And when you don't need that effect because you're in the long game, you can just play it for 8. Like I think this card is better than it looks in the early game. Like it's a 4-mana card. Like 4-mana card, 5/5, put a land in the battlefield is actually powerful, I will say.
Yeah, hard to see where it will fit exactly, but it looks powerful.
Yeah, it's powerful. It doesn't have a deck, but yeah.
There's a mana dork that can go alongside it. It's called Tender Wild Guide. It's a 2-mana 2/2 that taps to add any color, and it also has the ability to offspring. So that's the kicker. You make a copy and it becomes a 1/1. So for 2 mana, it's a 2/2. For 4 mana, it's a 2/2 and a 1/1. Both of them tap, add color of any mana, as well as tap, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So if you don't need the mana, you can just grow it. Now, we've seen mana dork in the past in Standard, and this looks like, no, it does a lot for a mana dork.
This card's
and
good,
also,
right?
we have Llanowar Elves, right?
What?
So Llanowar Elves will be part of the, what are they called? What are they called? Foundations.
That's at some point in the future. I don't remember when that's coming out, but it's not
Oh, it
now.
doesn't come out now?
No, later.
What's
Oh,
main?
wow. Okay.
I don't know what
Uh,
I
foundation
thought.
is.
Don't worry about it.
So
I'll explain it to you
foundation is
later.
like there's a bunch of cards, like what, four, five? Five cards?
What? No, it's a set, right?
Um oh, it's a set. I thought it was
Yeah,
like a bunch of
it'll be
cards
like
that
how
are in the
Hearthstone has
set.
a classic set. So it'll be
Okay.
right. It'll be a set that's legal and standard for like a long time. Like it rotates much more slowly than regular sets. And it's just like sort of basic
Mm.
effects that they're
Like the
going to
former
have.
basic sets, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Um,
so obviously this type of grain cards do better if they have also Llanowar Elves to
yeah, for sure.
enabling them.
That's
Yeah.
some way away though.
Yeah, let's go
Yeah.
back to the
Okay, okay.
the tender, because I
Yeah.
think the tender one might actually be the best. Like, I think the card's very good compared to
Yeah.
any other 2-mana drop we had recently. This card just pushed.
Yeah,
I
like
think,
it's also
yeah.
like kind of flexible, right? Like the fact that you can just make it stats is super valuable. Like I think the offspring ability is especially impressive there. Like when you're flooded, even works well. It kind of works well with multiples, right? Like if you play a turn 2 mana dock and then you just like play the offspring one on turn 4, it's like also a turn 4 play, right? So this actually has like good synergy with other mana docks, including itself. And then it doesn't just add more mana necessarily. It can give you a bunch of power and toughness. It gives you 2 bodies, which might be and for example, like this pairs extremely well with Virtue of Loyalty, right? Like you put counter, it helps you cast the Virtue of Loyalty, and then you pump them, untap them, pump them again. Like you're gonna get like a lot of power and toughness distributed over a bunch of bodies with Virtue, for example. And it's just flexible. Like it's also just a split card between like 2 mana to 4 or 4 mana to 7. Like it's I don't know. This actually has the kind of flexibility that you need in standard. I think. Yeah, it looks really impressive to me. I could see it being played in all kinds of decks, like ramp decks, mid range decks, maybe even more aggressive decks built around tokens. Yeah,
I think this card's good because it also adds of any color, and it's good in defense also because when it blocks well. And if you're attacking with an aggro deck into this, it's going to be an issue because they can use the mana to cast removal spell or to pump themselves. I think this card is going to be very often seen as a four. Like, I think this card is definitely the cards that make a color much better in a standard. And I think we're going to see a lot of this standard wild guide. I will think, yeah, I think it's just like, it doesn't take much for this card to be good. You can just play this in Golgari, you can play this in Selesnya, you can play this in, to support playing 3 colors because this gives mana of any color and fixes your mana a lot. Like, this is the type of card that not like it reminds me of Sylvan Advocate in a way, not because it does the same, because it doesn't, but because it automatically make all the green decks better by just being there, because it's just a 4-off that's going to make your deck better. It's going to make your deck better in early game and the late game, and I think this card does that. So definitely, yeah. But it gives a lot.
Okay, let's continue with this is a lot of words here. Eluge, the shoreless sea. It costs 1 and 3 blue, so that's 4 mana, and power and toughness are equal to the number of islands you control. It says that when it enters the battlefield or attacks, you put a flood counter on target land. It's an island in addition to its other types, and it has a flood counter on it, as long as it has a flood counter on it. And it says that the first instant or sorcery spell you cast each turn costs blue or colorless less to cast for each land you control with a flood counter on it. So this comes into play and then starts discounting your spell for the rest of the game slowly. Only your instant and sorcery, I guess. And yeah, this is a lot of words for a 4-drop.
yeah. I think this card might make it possible to play. The Haughty Jin decks were pretty popular in standard at some point. They fell off after a while, but maybe this is the card that could revive that because it's also a payoff for playing that kind of mono blue Jin deck and works with similar cards. I think the fact that it discounts colored mana is pretty unique as well, and kind of naturally works well with a lot of the cards you would play, right? Like being able to play Shore for 0 mana, or your cantrips like Sleight of Hand for 0 mana. As soon like for example, you can play it on turn 4, immediately cast Sleight of Hand, and then still have Shore Up like available on their turn. Like that's super impressive, right? Like I don't know, it's potentially very large. Like 4/4 growing to 5/5 is pretty big for well, I guess the 5/5 is large, 4/4 is not. But the discounting thing is like very impressive. I think, especially if you also have Hortigen. You know.
So you would play this in mono blue.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to, I think, because of the mana cost and because of the fact that it grows with the number of islands you control. Like, in theory, you could play like a bunch of the dual lands, but I think those coming into play tapped is a little too punishing for a deck that plays a ton of cantrips. But it's just that you have like a ton of these payoffs now. Like you have like active creatures you want to protect with the effects like Shore Up or Negate or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. This archetype was always like a little more strong than it looked, I think.
Yeah, I actually, my Harrowing Wayfinder deck is based on this card, and there's one thing that can be overlooked, that you can actually also do this in your opponent's land. Like, when you enter attacks, put a float on target land, right? Like, it's not only targets your lands. Like, you can target one of your lands so your spells get cheaper, but you can also put a float counter on target land your opponents control. And this is, well, to dissolve their mana.
No, it's in addition to
it says in addition.
Oh, I thought it would be the same. Oh, I thought it would be a disruptive card. Then it's worse.
Oh, geez, that can't be messed up.
Well, I mean, I don't know. And also one thing I realize is like this card gets a lot of mana, so it can be used with bigger spells. Like how do you say the step 3? How does it work with 3 steps ahead? Because I think it also can be helpful.
Yeah, it will reduce 3 steps ahead. Yeah.
Like if you once this leaves one more than one turn, you can just get 2 mana in your turn, 2 mana in your turn, which means like, you know, basically you're playing a 5/5 for free or whatever, and that's pretty promising. I think this card is similar vein on the red guy, on the red 4 drop we saw, where it's a pushed mono blue card, the other one is a pushed mono red card. But this probably means, I mean, this card looks like it should create a mono blue deck that's at least good enough for the first or 2 sets in a standard. Like, the power level is there, right? I mean, we know how the cards that protect themselves fairly well tend to be playable in the standard. We'll see, but this is good, yeah, and this plays very well with the other, I think, as well. The 2-drop we saw.
True. Yeah.
So Kitsa, because you play the Kitsa, and then when you play this, you actually use the mana to cast spells. So Kitsa gets easier to 3 power, so you can use the actual lands you have to copy the spells. I think that those 2 cards are meant to be played together. And I think we will see at least some people playing them in standard.
Yeah, Shore Up and Kitsa is kind of sick combo, right? You get to untap it and copy something else if you have enough mana, which you might do if you have this kind of play, right?
Like, and because of the discounts, with you can also play cards like the Deus, which are supposed to be, you know, not as good, but they are good, right? If you're playing discounts, they get much better, so you get more card advantage on flood. I mean, it just makes sense. The Deus is also very good with Lelouch, obviously, but like, yeah, I mean, we'll see. But the cards, I thought this was also one of the, you know, best cards for standard. But this one might actually end seeing no play at all, as opposed to the Tender. Like, I think the Tender is kind of locked to see play. This one maybe Lelouch maybe does not see play. Do you think? Okay, Anthony, I'm going to put you in a situation. Do you think Mana Blue will be a tier 1 or 2 deck in the next 3 months?
Wow, that's very hard to say. I'm gonna guess no, because it's like quite specific, but maybe I don't know. It's like, it's not a very confident no. It's a very low confidence no. Like, it's probably fine. Like, the gap between decks and standard is not very large usually, but maybe. I mean, before this card, I would certainly have said no. So that's something, I guess.
All right, let's get to the last one of our list. Pezza, the Bounding Spring. 4 mana, 2 colorless and 2 white for a 4/5. And when it comes into play, you make a treasure token. If an opponent has more lands than you gain 4 life. If your opponent has more life than you, and you make 2 1/1 tokens if your opponent has more creature than you. And then you draw a card if your opponent has more cards in hand than you. So, I don't know, it reminds me of Balance. Drafting of Cube. No, I'm not saying it reminds me of Balance on the same power level. But all that wording that, you know, if you put yourself in a spot where, I don't know, you somehow have a lot of things that aren't cards in hand, lands, creatures, or life total, you can gain a lot of value with this. Maybe something like, I don't know. Well, in Cube you do it with mana dorks, mana rocks, but I don't know, how can you get yourself into that position in standard?
Well, for some reason, I thought you could choose one, but now I realize you don't have to choose one. You can do all of, like, there's a world where you can go like turn 5 against aggro deck, put a treasure, gain 4 life, and put 2 creatures, right? Like this is strong.
Yeah, like I think there might be ways to abuse. Like for example, the life one is kind of easy. Like I mean, if your opponent is attacking you, that happens. But in, for example, some mid-range mirrors, you can use pain lands to artificially get there, the same way you might do it with creature, for example. Like you just ping yourself a couple of times with caves unnecessarily, then you get the life back from that. The creature tokens is obviously a little bit trickier, but I mean, you could, I don't know, if you have some blink effects or something. I mean, often your opponent's just gonna have like 2 creatures, and this will be your only one, and that will make 2 fish tokens, which is kind of great. That seems pretty easy to enable against aggro decks. Like, against aggressive decks, it doesn't seem hard to play this as a 4/5 that makes life and fish, right? That seems very hard to beat for a lot of aggressive decks, I assume. Something that's kind of interesting about this card is that it looks like all the modes are catch-up modes, right? And that's obviously like how the card is sort of flavored and how you sort of read the card naturally. But I feel like the last ability stands out because it's kind of the opposite, right? Like if you're ahead, you're often ahead because you have less cards in hand because you played more spells than your opponent, and this rewards you for that. So I think that's something like worth noting, right? Like it doesn't only catch you up. Like if you're ahead, you can further push an advantage. So it's kind of good ahead or behind potentially. Um, yeah, it's a very interesting card, I think, for that reason. Like
Yeah,
it plays so
I think
different.
what you said, yeah, it's what actually makes the card good. Because if you're thinking of playing defense in a semi-controlish deck, well, the other abilities are good, but you're playing like green white ramp with all the virtues or whatever. Well, you can just play turn 2 tender, turn 3Ds on the play, and maybe at 4/5 throw a card, which is still okay. Like there's not that many situations where this card is bad. Also, probably not very good in multiples for that matters. Like you cannot use it a
And
lot.
once you get its abilities, it's harder to it
Yeah,
sort of turns
exactly.
off the other rest.
When you use it once, but this is, I mean, this could be though like a super strong cyber card. Like you can think of this as a overpowered timely reinforcement, which is an anti-aggro card. Not definitely a main card, not clearly a main card, but a very good cyber card. Like if Monored is a deck in the format, this is going to be the best cyber card you can have against it because it's just like a bit of an unbeatable card if you're playing aggro, I will say. So I don't know how much of a good card this will be main deck, but the fact that you can do all of them, this looks good against aggro. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at. Like it has
yeah.
decent floor and they're super backbreaking against aggro.
You think this could be Pioneer playable? Maybe one of in incarnation decks and such. I don't know. Also, it could be fine in. Yeah, I mean, this could because I don't know if Blue White plays Timely Enforcement, but this could just literally replace Timely Enforcement, right? Like as a card. Like I would be more scared of this because what happens with Timely Enforcement is like sometimes you play them and they attack again because you have 1/1, so you jump and you gain some life, but you're in the same situation again. But this is like, well, not anymore. Like you just get attacked. So this could be better than. I mean, this could be a fine 1 over 12 in Asura's control. I think in the sideboard, like I could see this being a good. You know, it doesn't play with Kahira well, so maybe that's bad. But if aggro is playable in Pioneer, this card could be good there as well.
Yeah, I didn't think about it in Pioneer. That is plausible though. I mean, like for example, Incarnation did have a problem where the 4-drop slot was one of the weakest slots, right? So yeah, I could see it for sure. It doesn't take ult. Feels like it should, but it doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't play with Kaira. That's weird.
It's strange. Yeah, maybe they get Errata into next tournament, so they become I don't know what did Kahira do? Like it was like beasts, I think, or something.
Cat beast, nightmare dinosaur, something else.
I mean, I would be surprised if Kahira is like, yeah, you know, I like cats, I like elementals, nightmares, dinosaurs, and beasts. I like everything in the forest, but elks. You know, I do not like elks. Oh no, it's elemental actually. It plays well with Kahira.
Yeah, you can't play it.
Oh, right.
Well, you really trolled us there.
Yeah, well, I mean, new cards, you know. I also did miss the other one. Well, I think this then could be easily one of in the white control on the sideboard. Like, it definitely will change any game against aggro world. They just play 2 cards and you're like, boom, 4/5, 2 tokens for life, GG. So, yeah, I think this will. I will definitely like. If I was playing blue white control in Pioneer, I will try this card at least one off on the sideboard going forward.
Yeah, I'm down. Sounds good.
All right, that will be the last card that we evaluate. Anthony, Javier. Actually, Javier, I'll see you tomorrow
Yeah,
in Galicia
I am
at
actually
the
very
airport.
excited. Yeah. Well, not the
Are
airport,
we on?
not the airport though.
No,
I'm
we're
gonna
not on
dri-
the same
I'm
flight.
gonna drive there actually.
Oh wow, okay. I
It's
guess.
pretty far, but we'll see there in the tournament.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see Thursday night.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think we're actually staying in the same hotel too, so
Yeah,
see you at the hotel.
we'll see there. But we're gonna be in this weekend in the tournament called Impact in Galicia.
Impact Returns.
Which is the northwest Spain, known because it is not cold and it has good seafood. So
Oh, like the
definitely-
Yeah.
yeah, it's
That
definitely
is-
Oh, crazy.
yeah, the best
Yeah,
seafood
so-
I've ever seen. It was there, so I hope you like it because it was a very good experience for me last time I went, and that's it this time.
Javier, what events will you play in? There's a bunch of events all 3 days.
Well,
On Friday, will you play the Spanish Legacy Invitational or the Team Trios?
I'm gonna play Team Trios. You?
Team Trios,
Yeah,
nice.
Team
Me too.
Trios is funnier.
What's your format?
Legacy?
Legacy. Okay, I'll be playing pre-modern.
Then
And
Wait.
what about?
Mango, can you play in the Spanish Nationals?
probably.
They didn't invite me, so I assume now.
Oh. I was hoping that Mango
assu-
could become the Spanish Legacy champion. That would be sweet. Mango was.
That would be great.
Yeah, I know. It's invites only.
Oh,
I would've played it, yeah.
I don't even know how the invites work, so I'm probably not invited. So I
Yeah.
cannot play. GG.
And
I should win
on
more tournaments to
Saturday-
get invited.
on Saturday, there's the Legacy main event, I assume you'll also be playing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then on Sunday, you'll play the modern main event.
Yep.
Alright, I'll be playing the pre-modern one a few hours later.
I have not seen side events though, so maybe Pioneer deck. I don't know. I will.
There's
I'll check it
Pioneer
out.
on Saturday. That's a side event.
Maybe.
Uh,
We'll see. Maybe the trial.
uh,
We'll see. It depends on how it flows.
I'll
I will just
bring-
follow the flow. But I'm telling, like, if I do bad in tournaments, I might just go eat instead of playing side events because there's a lot of great places around the tournament venue. I'm telling
Oh
you.
yeah, I'll definitely
Yeah.
I'll definitely do plenty of eating as well as playing and meeting. I'll come in there with Pivo tomorrow, and yeah, no pre-release actually this time. Just full on old formats.
Yeah,
for
full
me.
pre-modern, huh?
Full Legacy, pre-modern, and things like that. No Bloomburrow
No,
new
but borrow new
cards.
cars. I mean, let's hope to have fun, and we can talk about what happened next podcast also, so we can just make Anthony
sure.
Anthony jealous because
I don't think I'll
Whenever
be
he tell-
jealous of people playing free modern.
no, but you can be jealous if you tell us how great the place was. It was not very hot. The weather was good, not too hot, not too cold, and the food was great. I mean, meanwhile,
Wait, not
you
too
were-
cold?
No, it's just like 25-ish usually.
Oh wow, that's not cold at all.
So also not hot. Like
Sorry, that's not hot at all. I meant
Yeah,
to say.
no,
yeah.
north.
What do you mean it's not hot?
No, it's not super hot. It's like
Oh.
38 degrees now in Madrid. Like
Yeah, now
like that's hot, right? Galicia is
yeah,
much better.
here right now it's 33.
Yeah, I
so
might
very
I
hot
might
here,
pack
so-
a small hoodie. That's what I'm saying. So last time I went, I took a small hoodie. So the weather's gonna be great. The food's gonna be great. And meanwhile, Anthony is like probably going to Sydney or something. So
No, not Sydney. No. Mulligan.
I had to say it. Sorry. Yeah, Mulligan. All right, I think we're
All
good.
right.
Good to go, right, Mango?
Yes, thank you so much for listening. Of course, if you enjoy the podcast, you can join our patreon.com/carnies where you can interact with us at any point you want. And thank you to those people who are still there, hanging in the podcast in the Discord. And thank you, Javier and Anthony, for being here. I'll see you again next week.
All right,
Bye-bye.
cheers.